Hello people, this is my first video in English. Right now I'm speaking with a script in the background because there is a lot to talk about, plus now my English is not good enough to speak in real time during gameplay, but I'm still learning. So I plan to create content in English to attract more people, not only Russian, but also English speakers. First of all, because English speaking community is biggest and I want to immerse myself in that environment to improve my skills. This idea ties into both my game development and personal life. So that's it. I will make content in both languages. Today I want to talk about the game, its pros and cons, features, and explain why Classic is the best version of all existing still alive. Let me start with the fact that Classic has the highest online of all versions. That's its main advantage. Online is constant, it varies from high to low, but in general there are always people here. If we compare the recently closed Russian version of CA, which moved from the GameNet platform to VFun, it's like night and day compared to Classic. Most people who've been playing here from the beginning think Classic is a dead game. Of course, they're wrong. Like, if you played the old Russian version, you would immediately notice the difference. Back then, it was nearly impossible to play due to the complete lack of players. Empty servers. That's why Russian version shut down, while Classic continues to function. Maybe online in Classic has dropped, as some may claim, but in a year and a half of playing, I have not noticed any significant changes. The main thing is that there are enough people here, especially in the evenings, to play comfortably. Sometimes I see low-rank players, and it's not just those who switched from their main account, but also newcomers who moved from another version to Classic, like me in 2023. Of course, no one of us are immune to a sudden drop in online or the possibility of a game shutdown. Anything's possible, but as long as the game is alive, we should take advantage of this opportunity. It makes no sense to divide CA into separate versions. Instead, we should unite all servers and make one single version of the game, so that everyone can easily install and play without problems, regardless of location. That would bring many more players together. Besides, Europe, NA, Turkey, it's all CA Classic, so why not unite Russia, Brazil? Apparently it's too complicated or unreal, I don't understand. Ideally, everyone would switch to Classic from other versions. This way we could artificially unite and maintain online here. Also, players should be able to change the game language in the settings, like Russian to Russian, French to French, Brazilian to Portuguese, etc. There is CA Reloaded, but it's different from Classic. Most people, including me, prefer Classic because it's better, and the same goes for all other versions. Apart from online, there is a wide assortment in the store and easy access to good items here. There are big differences between these versions. Let's start with the default set. I will compare the Russian set with Classic one. The main default weapon in Russia is AK-74, which was basically used for fun in the game. Maybe states aren't much different from M16, but its appearance definitely leaves much to be desired. I find it much more pleasant to hold M16 than AK. The same goes for the pistol. Did you know that in Russia M92 wasn't for sale, only in silver skin? The default knife in Russia is NR40, the worst knife ever. I hated it. Just so you know, M9 is my second preferred knife after Tracker 1. By the way, M9 wasn't in sale in Russian store, it didn't even exist, while on Classic, NR40 is freely available, as well as Makarov, the default pistol in Russia. So I'm not even going to talk about the grenade. I think it's already clear enough. Moving on, the most popular and all-time favorite tracker knife is available in Classic for a reasonable price, even for permanent and in several skins. You can also buy it for GP. In Russian version, it was only sold a couple of times a year and only if you were lucky with updates. I remember when I completely stopped playing, I still checked for updates almost every week, hoping tracker knife would be on sale. I even wrote to support about it. I was ready to pay almost anything for it, but it was so hard to get, unless you spend mad money on boxes or roulette, which is basically gambling. Other good knives were out of the question. The same goes for recon vests. I got it perm for free in Classic, but in Russia it wasn't available in the store and was difficult to obtain. In fact, the Russian store didn't sell recon vests at all. Now take a look at the store in Classic. They're even available in skins I never saw in Russia. Did you know that Russian store didn't sell uniforms for GP? Not did it sell ski masks, only for money. Sub mode was out of the question, but here everything is sold in free access and almost anything can be buffed permanently. Some items are even sold for GP, which were never available in the old Russian store, only for money. Also, there are long-term rentals here. In Russian one, you could rent items only for 1 day, not 7 or 30 days, just 1. Why not expand the rental options? It's much more convenient to stock up for a long time like in Classic. So, old Russia had a very limited range and low player demand. It was a poor and meager game. Not to mention GP and XP that players received per game. There were pennies. If here I can get 80k GP for playing Fireteam, in old Russian one I was getting less than 10k GP. The same goes for experience. Leveling up was long and difficult and the rewards were ridiculous. What kind of solvency could we have expected in this case? In 10 years in Russia I've accumulated 700k GP while buying small things like light vest, grenade, backpack very sparingly. And in Classic I accumulated 10 million GP in a year and a half, and that was just by playing 2-3 games once or twice a week. It's impossible to be poor here, you're always well off thanks to the high game coefficients, rewards the game gives you that you can sell for GP, the additional function for increasing GP, XP that player regularly receive, etc. The essential difference between the old Russian version and the Classic one is that here you can buy everything for a comfortable game. All the basic conditions are here. In Classic I can afford almost everything. In 2014 Combat Arms Russia changed a lot, prices went up, online dropped, in short the game went bad and eventually closed down. This had a number of negative consequences, but the main problem was with payment, game donation, especially for those who lived in other CIS countries like Ukraine. All major payment systems stopped working and were blocked. To donate to the game, I had to find other ways not so safe. In Classic I've just tied my MasterCard and I donate whenever and as much as I want without any problems. Only some people may notice that the engine is different in both versions. In Classic the engine is faster. Those who came here from the old Russian version like me will understand. If you had played there, you would have felt the difference. The gameplay here is much faster, while in old Russian one it felt like you were playing in slow motion. It was annoying. In 2022 I already couldn't play Combat Arms Russia without the third-party program, for obvious reasons. To play I had to use Warp, which encrypted my traffic. It wasn't critical but inconvenient. And here I can play without Warp, VPN or other programs. Of course, Classic is far from perfect, it had its downsides as well. Hackers, for example. By the standards of all versions, there are the most numerous here. It's not surprising because Classic has the highest online, so the percentage ratio is higher. The problem can be solved by kicking or moving to another room. However, don't attribute this disadvantage only to Classic, because it's present in other versions too, just not to such a significant extent. There are OP items in the game that create an imbalance between players, however, this can be easily be managed with moderation and rule setup. Classic has a sufficient number and variety of rooms, especially during peak times. In the end, you can just find another room. Among the shortcomings, I would also note the lack of tech support and the high difficulty level of the game. Additionally, there are bugs and lags, but these are present in all versions. To summarize, as I said before, many people whine and complain about the game, supposedly everything's bad here. I believe that all cons are compensated by all pros of Classic. That's why I gave you the analogy with the old Russian version of CA. I believe that's just scratching the surface. People are just used to everything Classic. Of course, not everything is perfect here, but hardly anyone would want the same fate to befall Classic as it did with Combat Arms Russia. What if players from Russian CA couldn't switch to other versions? People would have completely abandoned the game. That's the worst case scenario, but there's a big Russian-speaking community here, and the number of newcomers is gradually growing. Little by little, people get interested, learn about it, and then move on. All I'm saying is not a call to swallow all the game's flaws and do nothing. No, it's about appreciating what you have and trying to make a positive impact. Content creation is the perfect way to attract attention to increase online in the long run. Appreciate the game, it would be worse without it. Besides, it's not all bad. All problems are solvable and everything can be adapted to. It's just a matter of time and your desire. Who knows, maybe a new, better alternative will appear. All the developers will finally take the game seriously. Time will tell. Everything I've said is my personal opinion based on my experience. I hope you're still alive after my English and you don't mind giving me a like. Don't get discouraged because everything is ahead of you. So thanks for watching, bye.